Hello, welcome to Radiant Resilience. I'm Torrey. I had a request to do some things with our feet. So today it's all about feet. Before we get started, just a few things you'll want to gather up. If you have 2 blocks handy, grab those. If you don't, you can always just roll up a blanket or a towel. You'll also want to have a washcloth or even a sock would probably work, but a washcloth would be better. Tennis ball, if the tennis ball is too hard, you can always go with something softer like a racquetball. And then finally, a rubber band. And ideally, it's going to be a fairly thick rubber band. You can get thick ones in the produce section. They're wrapped around asparagus usually. I order these online, but find something. If you don't have a rubber band and you have a resistance band, you might be able to tie that around when we get to that part. Okay, so getting started, we want healthy feet so that we have a really strong, fit foundation for the rest of our body and to allow us to move easily. We're going to start with what's called the toe handshake. So you're going to bring your fingers and weave them through the toes from the bottom up. So you're going to start at the sole of the foot with the opposite hand as foot. And this is kind of challenging, so go slow and just bring your fingers in there and then just kind of wedge them down as far as you can towards the base of your toes. Just sit with that for a few breaths. Notice what your other reactions are. Sometimes you'll start to tense up your shoulders or you might tense up your jaw. So let that go and just press the fingers down into the webbing between the toes. From there, we're going to move the toes forward and back, keeping the ankle fairly stable, so all this movement is happening in the toe. Okay, now we're gonna, because the ankle is part of the foot, it feeds into the foot, we're gonna just use the grasp you have on the foot to rotate the ankle in one direction and rotate it in the other direction. Good. And then one more time, just press into the toes. And let that go. Wiggle that foot out. Maybe bring both feet in front of you and just kind of notice the difference between the two. And then we're gonna go to the other side. So you're gonna cross over. Now, if sitting on the floor doing this doesn't feel comfortable for you, you could always do this sitting in a chair. Feed the fingers through the toes from the bottom up. Press fingers down into the base of the toe, into the webbing. Just press there, give the foot a second to adjust to this. And you want your toes to be able to spread out for balance. All right, and then start to rotate the toes. So try to keep, or bring the toes forward and back. Trying to keep the ankle fairly stable, you're just moving through your toes. Now you can let the ankle rotate using your toes to guide that movement. This is also really good if you have bunions to help realign the bones of the big toe. Go both directions. All right, and then press one more time into the base of the toes. And let that go. Give your toes a little wiggle. Okay, and then we're gonna come up into table. Tuck your toes under, breathe in. As you exhale, push your heels back towards push your hips back towards your heels. And then go back again. So you're just gonna rock forward and back a few times. And this can be fairly intense, so you might not move your hips quite as far back as I'm doing. The next time you bring hips back, you're gonna move your heels side to side. So keep your toes where they are. You're just moving the heels side to side. Working out through the big toe line of the foot and then the pinky toe line of the foot. All right, and then go ahead and release, lift your feet up. Do a little ankle rotation, tap the tops of your feet on the mat, and release. Now this next one, we're gonna be stretching. So we just stretched the bottom of the foot. Now we're gonna stretch along the top line of the foot. Sometimes people can be really tight there and their feet stay like this. They can't go back into child's pose comfortably. If you wear shoes like flip-flops, something that your heel, the heel of the shoe isn't connected to your foot or strapped around the foot, this area can get really tight from gripping your toes to keep your shoes on. So if you have two blocks, you're going to line them up like this. So low side going widthwise. If you don't have blocks, you can use a rolled up towel. If you do have blocks and it's just too intense, that's too high, do a towel so that you can adjust the height. So we're going to bring the blocks or the towel forward, and then you're going to bring your knees up onto that lift, the prop, whatever it was, blocks or towel, and then you're going to ease your hips back again. Feeling that stretch along the tops of the feet. If it's available to you, you might be able to come up higher. If this is just too much and you want to have a little bit more control over it, you can do one knee at a time. So if you're doing one knee at a time, it would look like this. You could even lean back and lift that knee up for a deeper stretch. Okay, so we'll just take a few more breaths here. Relax your jaw, relax shoulders. Okay, and then ease yourself forward and come off your props. Move those to the side. And again, lift your feet up, little ankle rotation. Maybe tap the tops of the feet. Stretch one foot out behind you. Push back through your heel, which should feel really good after we did the top of the foot stretch. And then bring your heel forward and push it back. A couple more of those, forward and back, and forward and back. Hold here for one more breath. Take that same foot and sweep it out to the side. So this stretch, you might feel some inner thigh stretch, but what I'm after here, I'm going to turn this way so you can see what my leg is doing, is pushing the outside edge of your foot down and lifting your arch up. So not only are you getting that inner thigh stretch, but we're stretching the outer calf and the outer ankle, which is an area that gets really tight if you're prone to rolling your ankles in. So even if you're trying to lift your arches, if this spot is always tight, it's going to be harder to do. So if you can release it a little bit, that will help you out. Now, if that feels easy, and I tend to pronate, I drop my ankles. So this is hard for me to do. If it's easy and you want to make it a little more challenging, you can drop down, keep the arch lifting. It should feel like you're working pretty hard to keep the arch lifted. All right, and then come back to table. We're going to do the same stretch on the other side. Ankle or leg stretches out behind you, toes under, push back through the heel. And then we're going to inhale, bring the heel forward, exhale, push it back, and forward, and back, good, and forward, and back. Hold there for a breath or two. And then sweep that same leg out to the side. Outside edge of the foot is pushing down, and lift your arch up. If you want to make it a little more challenging, so this ankle is more flexible. I have old injuries on that first foot. This one's a little more flexible, so I feel like going down is a little more available on this side where I can keep my arch lifted. All right, and then go ahead, come back up, bring the knees in, lift the feet, rotate ankles, tuck your toes under. We're going to work our way up to standing. So bring knees up, come into a rag doll. Knees are soft as you hang here. And then bring your hands to your thighs. Inhale. On your exhale, come up halfway. Doing this in 2 breaths helps you not get dizzy, and then take another breath in. On your exhale, roll the rest of the way up. Okay, so now that you're to a standing position, you're gonna just work through the feet with a little toe prance. So you're gonna lift one heel up and switch, and come up and switch. Just like that, warming up the ankles a little bit more. Coming up as high on the toes as you can. And then let that go. Come into your standing pose, feet are forward, about fist width apart. Lift your toes up, spread them out, and just notice how the feet feel on the floor right now. And we're gonna compare in just a second. So grab your ball, whatever ball you chose to do, and we're gonna work through the length of the foot. So you're gonna push down and roll it. Whoops. Roll it as you're pushing down. Work along the inner line of the foot, the midline of the foot, and the heel. Or sorry, the outer edge. Now we're gonna come into the heel. So first we're just gonna start ball directly under your heel. Step the other foot back and just lean into it. Stimulating the heel bone is kind of a feedback loop to help us maintain healthy bone density. So when we stimulate that heel bone, it sends messages to keep our bones strong to the rest of the body and the brain. Okay, now move the ball just in front of your heel bone. Ball of the foot still on the floor, and lean into it again. Now it starts to get a little bit more tender, a little more sensation. So you're only gonna press down to what feels tolerable to you. You can stay right there, or you can start moving your heel side to side, working the width of the foot. Try to keep your shoulders and your jaw relaxed and come back to center. And then roll the ball forward a little more. Okay, now this part is the most tender, so you might not press down quite as much, but you're just gonna try to relax over it as much as possible. If standing and doing this is too much, you can always do this sitting in a chair so you have more control over how much pressure you're putting onto the foot. And then go forward even more. So now the ball is at that widest part of your foot, right behind the bottom joints of your toes. Heel is on the floor now, toes drape over. Same thing here, just drop into it as much as you can. And then move your foot side to side, the toe side. Side to side, heel stays on the floor. Back to the middle for a breath. And then the last thing we're gonna do is bring the ball forward and drape your toes over it. So you might even reach down and help spread your toes out, and then bring the ball of the foot to the floor as much as you can. Okay, step off the ball, come back to both feet, finding your standing position, and notice the foot that you just worked versus the other foot and how that feels. How does it feel as it connects to the floor? Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing on the other foot. Rolling lengthwise along the inside edge of the foot, down the midline of your foot, spreading your toes out as much as you can, and along the outer edge. Okay, now we're going to go back to ball under the heel. You might step back with the other foot and just lean into it. And usually this one is the easiest of all the ball positions, so just enjoy it. And then go in front of the heel bone and step down, breathe. Relaxing jaw, relaxing neck, and then go side to side with your heel. All right, back to center for a breath. right into the center of your arch, which is pretty tender usually, so you're gonna not lean into it as much. You don't wanna bruise yourself. We're just trying to release stuff along the bottom of the foot. The fascia, the connective tissue that runs along the bottom of your foot, connects to all of the back line fascia of the back of your body. Okay, now go just behind the ball of the foot, toes drape, heel comes down, move your toes side to side. So sometimes if you have things going on with your neck or your shoulders or your low back, if you release your feet, you'll feel an improvement in those other spots. And then pause for a breath. And now you're gonna go to the toes. Maybe spread them out. Woo. Dropping the ball of the foot down as much as you can. You can also do this up with the ball wedged up against a wall if the ball keeps flying out from underneath your toes. Okay, set the ball to the side. Come back to your standing position. And notice. From here, looking at something in front of you, we're gonna come up onto the toes and release down. Now, you're gonna keep the whole foot on the floor, just lift your toes up and release down. Up onto toes, down, toes lift. When your toes lift, you're trying to spread them out. When you lift your toes, that activates or engages the muscles of the arch of the foot. So if you have dropped arches or lazy arches, this is a really good exercise to do. I often do it when I'm brushing my teeth because I can work it into my day without taking time out of my day. And we'll just do a few more of those. Okay, and then relax. Now, similar to what we did on knees, we're gonna bring the one foot back and come onto the top of the toes. And so the foot is fairly far back. And then you're gonna move your heel side to side, working again along that big toe line and the pinky toe line. And then come to the big toe line, pause there for a breath. Slide your foot forward. Now what we're gonna do is really crunch the toes under. So you're just gonna press, crunching toes under, and again, go side to side with this big toe to pinky toe. You might notice certain parts of the foot, it's a little more challenging, okay? From there, to give that foot a little release, you're gonna tuck the toes under and press the ball of the foot down. Now, step back a little bit. Both feet are going to be pointing straight ahead. So from the front, it looks like this. It's almost like you're on railroad tracks. Both feet pointing straight ahead, about hip width apart, hip width wide. Now, more weight on your back foot. Keep that heel on the floor as you bend the back knee. So you should feel a stretch through the back of your Achilles and calf. One thing to look out for is as you're bending your back knee, sorry, there's a shadow. As you're bending your back knee, you don't want your arch to drop. So you want to keep lifting the arch as you're pushing the back heel down and bending the back knee. Then you can even bend and straighten a few times. And this is the side that I injured, and it definitely has a more limited range than my other foot and ankle. Okay, and then we're gonna do the same thing to the other foot. Toes under, tops of the toes under, leg is back behind you. Move your heel side to side. And then go to the big toe line for a breath. Now, slide your foot forward, staying on the tops of the toes, and crunch them under. And move the heel side to side again. And I read in an article that this motion, now I don't know if there's any proof to it, but that this motion, crunching the toes under like this, can help redistribute the fat pads on the bottoms of your feet because they kind of get smushed down as we age. Okay, tuck the toes under, push down through the ball of the foot. Okay, step that foot back, find your railroad tracks. More weight in your back foot. Back heel stays on the ground as you bend your back knee. Check in that when you bent the knee, the arch didn't fall down. You want to keep your arch lifted. And then maybe straighten and bend a few times the back leg. All right, give that a little rest. Now we're going to take our washcloth, and you'll want to come onto a surface that's slippery. So you'll want to come off your mat for this part. This is to strengthen the arch even more. So you're going to have the washcloth underneath your foot, and then it's like you're trying to scrunch up the washcloth, pulling the toes in. Same kind of action that we did when we started getting a foot cramp. Same kind of action as when we were scrunching the toes under, except for now you're using, instead of the floor and the weight of your body, you're using the muscles of your arch. So you're scrunching and lengthening, and scrunching and lengthening. Couple more here. Okay, now this is going to involve balance. After this next scrunch and lengthen, now you're going to work at picking up that washcloth with your toes and bringing it down. And then bring your foot up. So it also works on your balance and pick it up. So you just want to keep scrunching and lifting, okay? This is a handy one if you have kids that leave dirty socks all over the floor, then you don't have to bend down and get it. Okay, now we're going to do the other foot. So set the washcloth down, bring your foot onto the washcloth, and you're going to scrunch and lengthen. Scrunch. And like I'm doing this so intensely that I'm on the verge of getting a foot cramp in my arch. So you want to do it with a fair amount of intensity. I probably need to drink more water too today. Okay, a couple more. You want to feel your arch working though. Okay, now lift it up with your toes. Keep doing that a few more times. And notice if one foot is able to do that more easily than the other. This side definitely can grip better with the toes. Okay, let's do one more. All right, set your washcloth aside, grab your rubber band. This is the grand finale. So we're going to take the rubber band and bring it around your big toes. And you don't want it right at the tip of the big toe, and you don't want it right at the base of the big toe, kind of in the center part of your big toes. And then walk your feet apart. So it's going to look pretty weird. You want to feel your big toes being stretched toward each other. Another great exercise for bunions to help correct the bone misalignment that happens along your big toes. So just sit with that for a few breaths. You know how your feet are. If your toes tend to be really scrunched up, you might not be able to go as wide as I'm going. Now we're going to lift all the toes up, spread them out, drop them down. Lift, lower. Try to spread your toes out each time you lift them up. And keep them spread out as you bring them down. Okay, now here's a little isolation work. You're going to bring the toes down. Now, the 4 smaller toes are going to stay pressing down, and just lift your big toes up and down, up and down. Not only is this good for your feet, it's really good for your brain. It's the farthest extremity of our body from our brain. So sending signals down there to coordinate this movement is really good for your brain. Okay, a couple more. Last one. Now it's opposite. Big toe's gonna stay on the floor. Other toes lift up. Big toes. And in general, when I do this with a group, you're a one or the other. One you can do very easily, and the other one is really challenging. This one is much harder for me. I have to concentrate a lot more to do this movement. All right. Just a few more. Oh. Okay, now, last one. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention is if you are having trouble getting this movement down, one of the things you can do is help out with your hands just until your body gets the movement. So like for me, I was having trouble with this. You can use your hands to press the big toe down and then work at lifting the other toes up. Same thing with the other way. 4 toes down, big toes lifted lower. Now this last one is the most challenging and you might need to use your hands to help, but we're gonna lift toes up, spread them out. Drop the big toes, keep the 4 little toes lifted, and then spread out the toes, keep the middle 3 toes lifted as you drop the pinky toes down. And just hold there, spreading them out as much as you can. Ah. I started to lose it. Lift, toe, big toe, pinky toe. And you might notice your fingers are doing crazy things too to try to coordinate it. See if you can relax your hands. And release. Walk your feet in, release your rubber band. And one more time, find your standing position. Just see how your feet are feeling now. So I hope you enjoyed this sequence. You know, of course, use what works for you and let the other stuff go. You can always come back to this video and pick up new things as your feet get used to the work that we just did. So you might not do all of those things all in one go. Just take a few at a time until your feet get used to it, and then you can work up to more. I hope you find this helpful. Let me know if there's anything else that you'd like me to try to focus on specifically in my next couple of videos, and I wish you a very wonderful day. Namaste.